Hey, welcome back. I'm Steve DeMasco, the Grandmaster for Steve DeMasco Challenge Studios and the founder for the Strength and Honor Foundation, which I talked about in our last show. A couple of subjects that I want to hit on today. One will be about the latest shooting. I don't want to talk a lot about the shooting, but more about guns and handguns and laws and so forth. And the other one is a recent discovery on a new bullying situation that had happened with one of my students in California. So let's talk about the gun laws. You know, so I am an NRA instructor in two areas, both as to certify people throughout the United States as to be able to carry a handgun, because most states, a lot of the states, if not most of them, require a handgun course in order to get a handgun permit. I don't teach it. And the reason I got it was to get more knowledge about handguns and to qualify and see what those prerequisites were. And then the other certification I have is in-home protection, which was probably the most extensive. It was the most extensive and the most informative one for me, because I had been talking to certain law enforcement people that I asked questions about of when you can use your handgun and different aspects of somebody coming into your home. And because of the New Hampshire laws, there has been some misunderstandings about what that is. Because as a NRA instructor for in-home protection, one of the things that were required were to sit with a criminal attorney that deals with only those type of cases. She was a defender, she was a defender for people that had to use their handguns publicly. And that was a 3-hour conversation, or a 3-hour listening, more listening than a conversation. So some of the laws that I wasn't aware of was that people, and some law enforcement people thought, including myself, thought that if somebody comes into your home, that you were allowed to use your handgun if you felt that if they had broken into your home and you were protecting yourself, or you thought you were protecting yourself. She said that that is very wrong, and you'll spend a minimum of $250,000 for a lawyer if you, her, as a matter of fact, or someone like her, if you do the wrong thing. So here's what she told me. So this is really good information. And again, this was multiple hours to be able to get certified in this, not counting the shooting that I had to do. But the problem is that you can't do that. You can't do that. What she said was that in order for you to have that, to use your handgun, if somebody breaks into your house, one, you have to obviously be able to almost prove, and she said prove, that your life or your family's life was in jeopardy. Now here's the situation. This is what was really interesting. She said that if you come out of your bedroom, and say it's at night, and you come out of your bedroom and you go into the living room or wherever that the perpetrator is, and you shoot that person, then this is where you get into a lot of trouble, because the only time she said you were allowed to do that is to position yourself between you and the threat. So for instance, if you're in your bedroom and you don't have any children in the house, and say no one else is in the house, you come out of there, you have now taken yourself to that threat, okay? And now that's the problem with that scenario. So you're not legally allowed to do that. I mean, you can do what you want to do. And there's a lot of people that in this state and some other states that say, look, if somebody breaks into my house, I don't care, I'm going to do that. Well, in this country, really, you're guilty until proven innocent when you use your handgun. And so the law is that you cannot bring yourself to the threat. The threat has to come to you in order to be able to prove that, in fact, your life or your wife's life or is in danger. The only time you're allowed to come out of your room is if you have children in the house or somebody else is in the house, especially children, and you're allowed to legally position yourself between the threat and your children, the threat, or whoever's in the house. So now you've not come to the perpetrator without somebody being in the house. So now you've come to them and you've positioned yourself between the threat and your children. That is legal, because again, what you have to prove if you have to use your handgun, okay, or any kind of gun, weapon, is that your life was in danger. So that information was priceless to me. And again, I don't train anyone on handgun laws or the things that I've been trained in and what I'm certified in. I did this for my own personal self and my family's, and to also share with people for free, which I paid for to get certified. So that's a very, very important fact. There was another law that was passed that said, I can't remember exactly how the law is positioned, but you, in New Hampshire, you can use your gun outside your home. She said again, if there's something that you see something or something bad is happening, again, you're guilty until proven innocent. You have to prove, no matter, to make it simple, you have to legally prove that your life was in danger or your family's life was in danger, okay, in order to be able to use a fatal shot or use your handgun in any fashion in or out of the home. So that was very, very important information. The other thing is, I've been getting some emails to ask me my opinion on the gun laws and what's going on in this country. As you know, after the last shooting, again, everybody comes forward that is anti-gun and says that, it's the guns that are so readily available to everybody that makes, that this happens with, and this country is on the top of the food chain for, fatal shootings or assaults, and that's not true. Today I looked up, I actually watched a video of the latest statistics on where we are on the chain at an international level. The United States has 90, out of 100 people, 90 people have handguns or weapons in their home. Okay, that's 90 out of 100. All right, we are on the chain on an international level, okay, at 104. So we're not even close to the top of countries that have active shooter incidents. Again, we're at 104. Honduras is actually the #1 on the charts. In the United States, okay, we have Detroit, Michigan has 54.4. I'm big on stats, as you can probably tell. For some reason, my brain remembers these things. 54.4 active shooters out of 100 in the city of Detroit. Okay, we have in this state, I think it was ridiculously low. I can't remember that stat. So that's where we are with that. Now? My opinion is this. I think it is very easy, and we know it's very easy for somebody to be able to purchase a weapon, especially if they don't have a criminal record. So my opinion is that, I understand the NRA. Before I say this, I understand the NRA's position, because if we allow certain things that the anti-gun people want, then it doesn't stop there. It just keeps going, and they infringe on our Second Amendment rights. What I will say is this. I don't know if you remember this, but when I did my show a couple of years ago, I was the spokesperson for the White House, for the president directly, and the U.S. Department of Education on school violence and gangs. So I had all the statistics and all the records on all the shootings that had happened at that point from Columbine up in the United States. And regardless of what a person's motive is, when somebody, I believe as a behavioral psychologist, when somebody goes in and does these things, these heinous crimes, and takes several people's lives, okay, there has to be, regardless of what their reason is, personal reasons are, there is a mental imbalance with that. So we knew in the early 1990s, the President of the United States stated that we were going to meet less than 25% of the mental health needs in this country, less than 25%. That we were not equipped, nor did we have the facilities or the man and woman power to handle mental illness in the United States, that we were going to meet less than 25%. And that was in the early 1990s. I don't know where that stat is today. So my point being is, okay, where do you draw the line? What do you do? I mean, so if you say, okay, somebody's going to need a psychological test, okay, to be able to pass that in order to be able to have a handgun, again, you know, that's an issue. I mean, I was working in the school systems and having you know, being a spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Education at one point in my life, you know, I've talked to dozens of psychologists, and that test is inconclusive. It's, you know, it doesn't, you can't take a test and say, okay, this person is not mentally capable of having a handgun. So I don't have the answer for that. Okay, what I do know is that it is easy to get a handgun, and my other opinion on this subject is training. I can't tell you what the stat is at this point, but I know that a great majority of accidents with handguns is due to people not understanding how to use that handgun, okay, and safety. Even myself, having been an NRA, I am an NRA instructor, as I said, in 2 different levels, okay? I shoot with the FBI. I've been handling handguns for years, and even myself have had accidents. Thank God I haven't shot myself or anybody else, but I've had accidents, and that's with all the training that I have. So people have to understand that and realize that we know it's a deadly weapon. We know how dangerous it is. But I know that a lot of people buy handguns, okay, bring them into their house and really don't practice with them, understand the weapon, okay, and the safety that goes along with it. I mean, I can't tell you how many people have passed the handgun safety courses, okay, and I see them handle a weapon, and I've even seen it. This facility that I train at the F6, which is a place in Long Island, a military facility where I help ex-vets, okay, not ex-vets, they're veterans that were special ops guys or snipers that are now getting into private security. So I get to see police departments. They train a lot of police departments, and I see, you know, security guys, the largest security firm in the country. This is what sticks in my mind. I know I'm jumping around a little bit. It was the largest security firm in the country that handles malls all over the United States. They're the largest in the country. Had some of their top people training there at this facility, okay, handling the weapon and shooting it. The instructor was flawless. He was great. But the people handling the gun, the handgun, I mean, I saw people taking it out, fanning. I saw people taking it out, pointing it at themselves. I mean, is that the person I want in a mall? Okay, or in a public place, okay, that has no idea what they're doing with that handgun? I mean, they almost shot themselves. It was amazing. I was watching the whole training period because I can watch it from a one-sided mirror at this facility. So my point being is this. I mean, these are people that are licensed to carry handguns in public places that get paid to do this, never mind the citizen, the everyday citizen that handles these weapons and don't know how to use them that well. You need to practice, and you need to practice all the time. If you plan on ever having to use that weapon, you definitely need to practice, and practice with somebody that knows the weapon, can teach you the safety measures of it, okay? It's just amazing how many people I've seen pull out a gun and point it at somebody else. It's just amazing. I mean, my own brother-in-law, okay, asked me to help him with gun safety. And here's a guy that was brought up with rifles and guns since he was a little kid. And first thing he did was pick it up and fan it, and there were 3 people standing in front of him. He didn't have his hand on the trigger because that was the first thing I told him. But again, this takes training. It's a deadly weapon, and it has to be respected as a deadly weapon. And the only way to respect that is to have the proper training. So that's my views on that. Okay, and I'll leave it at that. If you have any more questions, you know, again, you can email me at stevedemasco@aol.com, no spaces, lowercase. The other thing I want to talk about, and I've talked about this many times, is bullying. This is very, very upsetting to me. I got a call from one of my students who was a 7th degree black belt. I lived in my house, as a matter of fact, from California. Has a studio in California. And I'm actually going out there in a couple of weeks to do a seminar. But his daughter has been, she's I think 10 years old now. She's been taking lessons from him since she was 4. So was the other daughter. They're twins, and the son. He called me up and he said, you know what, can we change the format of the seminar you're going to do for kids? I'd really like to have you talk to the parents about the bullying scenario again. So here's what happens. He tells me that his daughter is sitting in the lunchroom, okay? And, well, before I tell you that, she came home. There was chocolate milk on her jacket. It was in her backpack. He said, Dad, you know, because they said, why did you change your shirt? Oh, somebody spilled chocolate milk on me by accident. So he takes the shirt out, and it's not an accident. It's covered with chocolate milk. Obviously, somebody dumped a whole thing of chocolate milk on her. Now, this girl knows how to defend herself, but she's sitting she's sitting at the table at the lunchroom in school, in a public school. Somebody comes up, dumps the chocolate milk on top of her, okay? She's not allowed to hit him because she wasn't physically assaulted. So there's no defending yourself there because of the zero tolerance policy there. And now she's got all the symptoms of what every normal kid, who, whether you've taken martial art lessons or not, okay, has. I don't want to go to school, my stomach hurts, okay? This is what they do because they're afraid, they've been bullying. And that wasn't the first time that something happened with this kid. If it had, she wouldn't have had all those symptoms right away. This is a disgusting, okay, atrocity that's going on. I have schools all over the country, and I've been doing this for 45 years. This is a terrible, terrible thing that goes on in these schools all the time, okay? And I'm not blaming the schools. What I am blaming is the fact that there aren't policies set for this. There are companies out there making millions of dollars, millions, on these anti-bullying programs. Teachers are forced to take more seminars. It goes through a school system, and it's gotten worse. It's gotten worse. Nothing has changed, and nothing is getting better. And kids are still doing terrible things to other kids and to themselves because of this scenario. So they want me to talk about it, and I'll be happy to talk about it. But you know what the bottom line is? The bottom line is it's great to have self-defense lessons. It really is, because at least if somebody puts their hands on them and the parents back that, okay, they can defend themselves. But there are so many other ways now they bully besides getting physical. And the physical, believe it or not, is the easiest part. It's the social media. It's the verbal harassment. This is going on in schools all over the United States, and nothing is being done. So I'm writing a new book about this. And if it doesn't get published, I am already published, so I have a good shot at it, then I'm going to publish it myself. Because there are things that can be done. But the only way it's going to happen, if I outline this, which I'm going to do, step by step, okay, of what needs to be done, having lectured in 100 schools and over more than a dozen school districts. We're talking to more than 1,000 educators at a time, because that's what I did for 6 years for the White House and for the U.S. Department of Education. There are things that can be done, but the schools are going to have to change policy. They're going to have to implement policy besides a zero tolerance policy, and then other than these good little signs that go up in your schools saying, talking about bullying or anti-bullying, it's ridiculous. This is not going to stop the bully. They could care less. They laugh at that. So until we have a policy, which I do have, and I've worked on for a very long time, okay, and the schools implement this policy, nothing will change, and it'll continue to get worse. And the only one that has the power to do that is the school boards, and those are parents. And parents are going to have to make enough noise and have enough power behind them to make these changes. Okay, I'm going to probably have to talk about one other thing, drugs. Okay, I might not even be able to do a self-defense thing today. I will for a minute. I just got a call from a mother from a very wealthy town in the state of New Hampshire. A town that you would never think, and I don't want to say the town because I don't want to pinpoint anything, a town you would never think would have a huge drug problem, okay, and because it's a small community, a very small community next to a big city, next to Manchester, New Hampshire, but has well, let me put it this way. 6 kids 2 weeks ago overdosed on heroin. Kids, teenagers. And they're asking me to come in and talk to the parents, a group of parents that really want to make a difference, which I've agreed to do. But it's going to be a very difficult situation to be able to fix. It's very inexpensive, and it's coming in from the major cities in Massachusetts, and Manchester they have their hands full of problems out there because you have a lot of gangs out there. So it's readily easy to get. And you want to know something? I don't want to say I told you so, and I'm not going to say that, but when I was lecturing, I told it was coming to New Hampshire, because I used to be a juvenile probation officer up here, that it was going to come to New Hampshire. I tried to tell them this over 20 years ago, and they said, oh, not this state. Well, it's here. The gangs are here. They're supplying these kids, and they're doing it in not just the poorer areas, but in very wealthy areas, which like this town, you would have never, ever expected that. I got about 5 minutes today left, so like I said, every week I'm going to do a self-defense technique, but one time I'm going to do a Shaolin 5 fist technique, which is advanced, a little bit more advanced, and then the following week I'm going to do something that is a self-defense technique that hopefully somebody will find some use in. So I'll be